You have questions? We have answers. Welcome to the Therapist Question Box with your host, Miss Lindsay Schiss.
Welcome back to another episode of the Therapist Question Box. We're happy you're here and happy that you're here to join us for a really important discussion. So today I have Lindsay Adalifo with us. Lindsay, thanks for joining us.
It's good to be here.
Lindsay has been at Therapy Utah for about 4 years. She has a great first name. We get confused a little bit, don't we?
We do.
We do, yeah. We spell it a little differently, but we get them confused. So
We're still the best.
So we are. That's right.
We're the Lindsays.
That's right. We'll take it. The two Lindsays at Therapy Utah. So Lindsay sees all types of clients. And Lindsay, why don't you introduce yourself to us?
Okay. So I grew up around in this area. I've been in Utah mostly. I ended up marrying someone who was Polynesian. So my kids are part Polynesian. They tend to lean that way with their what they like to do, and they just love to embrace that. And so
Nice.
it gets super frustrating, I'll say, when they don't get sunburned and I was
Right.
sunburned. Right. And so, I mean, I guess blessing in disguise, but
Right.
they are
Different
very
ball game.
confused.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, they're very confused when they're like, "Why are you hurting?
Right.
Why are you
Why do you never have to worry
why do you
about
never have
that?
to worry about
Yes.
that?" So I love doing therapy. It's been something I wanted to do since I was 16.
Wow.
And I love the people that I work with.
And people love you. They do. Your clients love you.
It's good to hear.
Yeah, they do. And I love that you love it. That is, sometimes people say, oh, what a hard job. Like, oh, you hear all that heavy stuff. What are your thoughts when people say that?
You know, I could say, it can be heavy. But there's something about it that has almost been like almost healing for me, where it's like a way to take it away. It takes me away from like what I'm dealing with, and like this might be something that we can deal with and we can address, which, I comes with its own, if you want to diagnose that, and its own issues, right? But
I love that though. You're helping others in their pain, right? You're getting out of your own stuff. I think that's absolutely, and I've also heard that therapists are wounded healers. And I think that is such a beautiful statement, like that really most people that are therapists have done therapy, have gone through hard things,
yeah,
and that have experienced healing and therapy, which is why often we're drawn to the profession.
yeah,
So,
absolutely,
yeah, very cool.
yeah.
Well, today we're going to talk a little bit about trauma. The question, I'll just go ahead and read the question. It is, what are the best ways to heal from an emotional trauma? And is there a process? So I love this question because we are a trauma-informed clinic. Most of us are trained in trauma modalities. And so let's first start out with, how do you define trauma?
Okay, so everything, right? So we're just trying to define everything.
Yeah. What do you mean by that? You said we're trying to define everything. What do you mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think I love this question too, but what first came to me was basically like, how do you resolve everything that's going on inside of your system? So it's like, how do you define everything?
It's a little daunting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that already like makes me, consider the person who was asking this. Like, it's such a deep question.
It
Like,
is.
really tells how much what they're going through and like what it is that they're trying to address. Trauma itself, I think we find ourselves getting trapped a little bit because we overthink. Why did this happen? What does it mean? How do I fix it? But more, it's like we forget that this happened in the nervous system, right? Like this happened in the body. And so when we spend so much time trying to think through, how do I fix this? What happened? And we can try to figure out the whys. But figuring out the whys doesn't give us much more than just having the why and having an answer to a question or having an answer to a definition to a word or to trauma itself.
I actually love that you said that because I think I have been known to be a bit of a germaphobe. And I still am. And it's something I kind of manage now, but I grew up with kind of a fear of germs. And it's interesting because when my kids would get sick, I would be like, oh, how did they get sick? Like, that's what I wanted to figure out. Where did they get it? And the truth is, who cares? And does that change the fact they're sick? No,
Right.
It just actually is, right?
Yeah.
So I think that same principle applies. Like, trauma actually, like how we got it, how we define it, what it is, like it turns out it just is there, and you've had an experience that has overwhelmed your nervous system, right? So exactly defining it, I think Gabor Mate said it's not what happened to you, but it's how you experienced what happened to you.
Exactly.
Right? How your body experienced it. So you could have an experience and I could have an experience, and they could be the same exact experience, but the way we internalize it are very different, right? And so understanding that, like, two things, the same thing had happened to two people, and it can be very different how we experience it, and giving people space and grace for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So really important to understand that. Here's the question I would say is, when you think about trauma as being not what happened to you, but how we internalize what happened to you, what do you think, what are some misconceptions about healing from trauma?
I think first, this overthinking, right? Like, we intellectualize it and we think, like, if I can figure out why or where it came from or what happened or what it meant, then I'll be healed. And I think that's where people get stuck staying in therapy as long as they do, because they have the answer and they don't feel healed. So they might have this, okay, I know what happened now. I know why it happened. I know when it happened. I know all the, who, what, where, when, and why, but I don't feel any better. And I think that's where, because it happens in the body, we have to learn how to feel it. Not necessarily learn how to know what it is.
So what does that look like? If you're saying, okay, you can know how it happened, why it happened, where it happened, how it happened, but they still don't feel like they're healed. Why is that?
What comes to mind, I think, is us as kids. And, we a lot of this, we all go back to, trauma is happening when we're kids, and it's because that's when we develop our values and our, what we believe about ourselves. And that's, that's where trauma tends to hit us. And so when we think about it as kids, we didn't have this support system, the tools, the intellectual ways to deal with it at the time. And so then what we needed was for someone to hold us through it, right? And tell us that the sadness and the anger and the overwhelm was okay to feel and that it would pass. But because we don't have that, and when something happens instead that's, you need to get past this, you need to get through this, you need to get over this, we go to the safest place that we know, and that's the mind. Like, we withdraw and we go into the mind and we go, okay, I need to figure out a way through this instead of figuring out a way to feel this. And so I think that's the biggest thing, is just to learning how to feel it, how to hold yourself through it, how to hold yourself through that pain and recognize that it's going to pass.
Oh, Lindsay, you said so many good things there. I love that you talked about childhood. I love that because people will say, oh, do I have to go back to my childhood? Is that where it happened? Well, but you explained exactly why. Like, that's when our values are developing. That's when our cognition is developing.
Yeah.
And we often need to be held through that. And often that doesn't happen, right?
Yeah.
So we go to our brains. And as you said that, I thought, that's so adaptive. That's our way to kind of manage this overwhelm. And like,
what a strong kid you are.
Yes. So instead of saying, oh my gosh, we just went in our brain and that's horrible, it's actually like, no, congratulations, right?
Yeah.
But now we need to go back to say, okay, I have to feel this. I have to feel it. I love that saying, feel to heal. We can't go around it. We have to go through it, right?
Okay.
So what does that look like from your perspective? How do you feel what happened to you so long ago, or what is impacting you, right? How do you feel it?
So I have this equation, I guess, that my clients will be familiar with and probably sick of hearing about. right? But it's this, if the emotion is greater than the situation, then we know that equals trauma. So there's something bigger that's happened here. And so we have...
Can I just stop you there?
Yeah.
How do you know that? Like, how do I know that the emotion is bigger than the situation? Like, I'm reacting, like, wow, why did I respond like that? That was too much. I mean, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. So, I mean, you either have an instinct where that comes up and it's going, you're asking yourself that, like, why am I having such a big reaction to this? Where is this coming from? Like this was, or something, some inner inconvenience happens and we have this big come apart and we're going, it was just somebody cut me off. Why am I so upset? Why am I so emotional about this? Or I was late for work, or I was whatever it is. And you have a hard time coming back from that. Then there's something else that's going on.
Okay. So that's how we know we've got something that we need to look into. Yeah. So then how do we feel it? How do we now know, okay, that's what's happened, but how do we feel that? Like when you're saying we have to get in our bodies, what does that look like?
So I work a lot in like IFS and in parts. And so with this, I have my own things where, things will come up for me and I go, this is not something that I can like appropriately deal with here while I'm at work or wherever else I may be. And so I try to address, okay, like I hear you. I don't know which part you are. I don't know which part of me or what age you are or whatever it is that you've come up to talk through this. But I'll talk to you about it later. Almost like just reparenting yourself, like through it. And so as if you were a kid and this is happening now, what would you say to your kid? Your kid comes up to you and they're, they have this really big emotion. We have this saying in my house where all big emotions are allowed, but big behaviors have boundaries. And so it's this, all these big emotions are allowed, but if the behavior is so big, then we have to take it back to a space where that's more appropriate.
I love that. Big emotions are allowed, but big behaviors have boundaries. Can we have another B? I like it.
Yeah.
I think that's awesome. And you've got these boys, right, that probably have some big emotions that often, and big behavior probably accompanies it. So you're saying, okay, every emotion's welcome, but we got to behave in a way that like manages that, right? I love that. Like, because I think sometimes we act out, but we're not actually feeling what's really going on inside. Like there's something there, right? We're not just behaving badly or acting out to do that. I often say that, like, that's what we're seeing. That's the tip of the iceberg. Yeah. But underneath it is actually the emotion and what's really going on underneath. Yeah. And that's what we've really we've got to get clear about.
Yeah.
And as a parent, how do you do that? How do you get past sometimes that big behavior, that outburst or what's going on and get to the emotion underneath? That's not an easy thing to do, even as a clinician.
Right. Oh, man. Yeah. Especially as a clinician, I'm going to say.
I agree.
Because my kids know what I do for work. And so they'll even tell me sometimes, you're a therapist. Don't you know how to deal with this? And I'll go, I don't know.
Yeah. I'm human too.
Doing this is the first time for me too.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
But I think one thing that's really helped with my parenting and my kids is just always going back to it. Just checking in again. And so if there's something that I felt like was off, if I noticed like maybe I reacted too big or that someone said something that I didn't address, I go back in and I'll check in with them. Is there something I missed? So we have that question. Is there something that I missed that you need to talk to me about? Or is there something I need to apologize for?
And are they open to you when you ask that question? It's awesome.
Yeah.
So you've created some safety in the relationship where they feel like they can have that discussion with you.
Yeah. Maybe too much safety.
Really?
That's the case.
Oh, no. I'm thinking, bravo. That sounds awesome.
There's oftentimes like, because I mean, I'm human too, and I'll start to react or have a big reaction over something. And my 11-year-old he's super mature for his age, which usually we don't love that. But he's emotionally, maybe not mature, emotionally intelligent.
Yeah.
For his age. And he'll say, Mom, this feels like a you problem and not a family problem. Or, Mom, I think you might need to take a minute. Or, this seems like your feelings and not my feelings. I'm like,
You're like, wait a minute, you're right.
Hold on.
And is he often right?
Often right.
Yeah.
Yep. But
Wow.
at the same time, I can say the same thing back to them. This looks like something that you're dealing with, that you're taking out on your brothers.
Yeah.
And he'll, yeah.
You're right. And he's open to that feedback.
Yeah.
It's pretty awesome. I love that. So, let's talk about the process that this question talked about. Is there a process for healing trauma, right? Is there like a universal process where you go, here's the trauma, here's how you heal from it? What do you think?
I'm going to say there's not a universal process. And that's just because of, what we were talking about earlier. And that's everybody's system is so different that I think if I heard that there was a universal process, I wouldn't trust it. Like, are we sure that that's going to work for me? Like, they don't know me. They don't know what I did. They don't know who I am or what I went through.
Yep.
And so you already start to question it when you hear, is there a specific process?
Like this one size fits all. No, because turns out we're all unique.
Right.
Okay. I agree with that. So what would you say is a process? Maybe one option or the one that you use or that you found effective?
I think first acknowledging the emotions that you have. I mean, it's surprising, I think, to see how many people not necessarily even know where or like what emotion that they are feeling in the first place. And so something as simple as like an emotions wheel, right? Or like a feelings chart or something to just start to familiarize yourself with like the different emotions you could be feeling.
Yes.
And then to notice, is this bigger than the situation that I'm in right now? Am I reacting bigger than the situation that I'm in?
Do you actually have clients ask themselves that? Like, is this bigger than the situation that I'm in?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it takes a little while, but because that's a pretty consistent thing with me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's pretty common, something for them to ask. And then at that point, I think support system is ideal, right? But if you don't have that support, which is also unfortunately common,
yep,
to address that with yourself. So, if you need to go home after work, to always like return back to what is it that there was something that really, there's something that really threw me off today. I was really disturbed by getting cut off. I wonder why that was. Just being curious about it.
Yes. I love, I really do think curiosity is such an important starting point because we can go into shame. We can go into blame. Like, why am I doing this? I shouldn't be doing this. Mm-hmm. I know better. It was just someone cut me off. What's my problem? Or that idiot.
Yeah.
He was he was a jerk and whatever. But if we can go, wait a minute, something's going on for me. And I responded way bigger than the situation was. Can I figure out what pain point that might have tapped? What childhood wound that might have tapped? What's going on there? And when you can do that, I think there's maybe openness to figure out, okay, what is going on with me?
Yeah.
And as you said, reparenting that part of yourself. So what would that look like? Okay, I'm sitting in curiosity. I go, okay, maybe that was like a pain point from my childhood. Mm-hmm. What do you do then?
I mean, even at this, there's something that you just said about, feeling this bigger than someone, someone cut me off and this is a really big thing that is bigger than the situation, right? And I think even having that, we have that now, is like, okay, so I shouldn't do that. I shouldn't be, that tells me that I'm emotionally traumatized. But that's almost the point, is that if you're having this big reaction, then to give yourself space to have the big reaction. Because that's not something that was allowed, which is why it's allowed now. You're an adult. And so you're an adult and you're free to do it now. And so now you do. Right?
So what would the big reaction look like? Like, because I'm thinking, like, if I'm in my car, a big reaction, yelling at the driver and honking and freaking out, like, probably not appropriate. Right. But what kind of big reaction can I, even as an adult, like, I've still got to manage things if I've got kids or I still got to keep it in check. So what would that look like?
And so if that, if this feels like it's not an appropriate, right, situation to have this big reaction in, we go back to it later and check in on it and go, you know what? At that time, like my heart was beating really fast and like my face was flushed and I could feel, okay, so this was anger, but it was like betrayal, like having somebody cut me off. And so I'm feeling this super intense emotion and I wonder why that was, and you relive it, right? And you sit and you relive it and you go, okay, so when did that start? It was right when they cut me off. Or when did that start? It was after they cut me off and I realized that I was actually scared for my kids, that we were going to be in an accident, or I was worried that I wouldn't be able to keep anybody safe. And then it starts to answer those questions, which I think a lot of the time we have a reaction like that and go, oh, I don't know why I'm overreacting. And we just shove it down.
Yes. Yes. And we just try to move on and we try to move through it, like just move forward and forget it. And then all of a sudden we're like, wait a minute, there's something that keeps coming up because we didn't ever process. We didn't ever go through it. Right.
Yeah.
You know, I love that reminder is, oh gosh, there is something there. And to come back to it. I think that's so important. Like it may not be the appropriate time, but to come back to it. And you know, something that has been helpful for me and that I give clients a lot of times is I'll just say, just write, or voice memo, right? Just let it all come out because often you'll see it when you're writing. Like, oh, that's it, right? I had an experience the other day where I did that, where I was writing down, I was upset about something. I couldn't figure out why. Like, it was supposed to be a happy day and I was feeling really sad. And I thought, you know what is going on for me? Like, this is weird. And I felt like I went into shame, frankly, like something is wrong. Why am I doing this? And then I wrote down and I started writing and oh my gosh, I had tears come to my eyes. And I was like, oh, that's what it is. That's where the pain is, right? There was pain associated, even if in a happy event, it poked on a pain point in me that I didn't even know was there until it poked it. And so when I was able to do it, I thought, oh my gosh, it makes so much sense. I was able to get really clear about what it was and not go into shame or blame around it or just have it fester inside.
Yeah.
So are there any other things besides writing and like maybe voice memoing that you feel like helps you get clear on that? Because sometimes it's hard to even know what's going on inside of us.
One pretty consistent exercise I do, I mean, writing, it's partially writing, but if we can tell that it's something from childhood, right? And we can tell that it's something just deep, right? That we're just not sure exactly what it is. I'll have my clients write with their left hand or their non-dominant hand a question, something that they want to ask the adult them. Like, what is it that we do? Or where are you now? Or what? I mean, just something even that could be basic. And then they respond with their dominant hand.
Wow.
And it starts to really get them to, because it looks like a child's handwriting. And so they'll start to respond and I'll get them going back and forth without even me saying much because they have this conversation with this younger version of themselves.
Lindsay, that is such a cool idea. I've never heard of that. And I'm going to use that. That's really cool. Writing with your non-dominant hand, and that's your younger self. And then your current self with your answering with the other hand.
And it can be really emotional.
Yeah.
You know, and that's something that I've done as well. And it's something that's like, you could ask the question, just why? Like, why am I dealing with this? And you immediately have this like reach out to this younger version of you.
Yeah.
And you want to help them but there's nothing you can do. Right. And so I think that's part of that process is you have to help them sit with it.
Yes.
And tell them it's okay that you're feeling this. It's going to pass.
And it's like you said, it's reparenting. I mean, you're reparenting the younger version of yourself.
Yeah.
And that's so beautiful because sometimes I think we look for validation and help me feel better outside of ourselves. Yeah. But when we know, actually, it's within ourselves.
Yeah.
Like we can help ourselves and the healing is within us. It's not elsewhere. It's not, numbing out on our phone. It's actually within us. That's such a beautiful reminder that we have it within us. It's beautiful.
There was something that you said when you said you were doing this exercise with yourself and just writing. And I think something just important with that is that you didn't just address and find out why, like something was going on, right? Like it started to feel better because you allowed the emotion to be there.
Totally.
And I think that's a big part of this is not just finding out the why or the how, and that we do that and we think, okay, like why am I not doing better? Right? Which already, why is such a judgmental word, right? Like, we can change the way we even talk to ourselves by taking the word out. Why? Like, what is it that made me think of this? Or why did I think of this? What made me think of this? And just switching that out changes quite a bit. But allowing yourself, like, oh yeah, that did hit a pain point in me. And I'm going to feel that for a minute. And I'm going to let that part of me, that younger part that jumped out and, hey, I have something to say about that. You know, that little kid that jumped up and, oh, I remember this. And we address that. Okay. And we give him just some space to talk through it.
Yes. And you know what I hear when you say that is it's just compassion.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's compassion instead of I shouldn't, or or shame. You know, for me, when that situation happened, it was so clear where the pain was coming from. And I actually did. Like, I remember just thinking like, oh, that makes so much sense. And I felt this like deep compassion for myself. And it was one of those moments that felt so healing. And I didn't really care why.
Yeah.
It turns out it just is.
Right.
It just is. I don't have to defend it. I don't have to explain it. I don't have to explain it away. It just is. And it came up for a reason. Right. And it was this moment of self-compassion. And it's funny, like no one even knows what it was and didn't share it with anybody because I actually felt like I was heard and understood, like in my own self. Like it was beautiful. So
that's amazing.
Yeah, I appreciate that reminder of just like the why it doesn't matter. Why just is. So yeah. So with that, when do we know that, let's say we've gone through a trauma, we've recognized trauma. When do we know that we need to get more help than just ourselves?
I think with this, again, it's a complex question, right? Because everybody's system is different. I think I would say when you start to not feel like yourself.
Okay.
Like when you start to feel like you have to put in more effort to just feel like yourself. And if that starts to feel like you've already lost some of that or it's fading, we do that with our physical health if we feel off, right? And if something is hurting us or feels off physically, or then we go to the doctor and we go check in. But with our mental health, we wait until we just wait.
Wait and wait. Yes.
Yeah.
Until something happens and we're like, I gotta do something about this, right?
Right.
I appreciate that reminder. Like when you just feel off, and things maybe stay off for a while, like you're just going, something's off here. I need some additional support.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful that therapy is not as stigmatized. I feel like lots of people talk about therapy. They talk about their therapist. It's on TikTok. We're hearing about it all the time. But still, I think making that call can feel vulnerable.
Yeah.
And knowing like, I'm going to go do some of this hard work. I remember my therapist saying, this is the hardest work you'll ever do. If you're willing to really do it, it is the hardest work you'll ever do. And I remember thinking, come on.
Right.
And the truth is he was totally right. Changing thinking patterns, going and trying to work on past trauma and healing some of those things, boy, he is not wrong.
Yeah.
And I just honor people that are willing to do that, to go in and do the work, right? And again, I think, gosh, we have one wild life. We get one.
Yeah.
So why sit and feel like we don't sit with broken bones?
Right.
We don't sit there and go, you know what? It's broken, but we're just going to keep work. It works kind of okay.
Yeah.
No, we actually have to move it in place so it actually can heal. But again, it's the process of that is painful. Like when we set a bone, it's painful.
Yeah.
But that's how we heal because we set it appropriately. It's the same principle of therapy. We've got to set it right so we can heal appropriately, right? And that's not an easy process,
right?
But it's worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's so much too when just coming to the physical aspect of this that that aligns. And that's, if you don't go in and it sets the wrong way, you now have to go back in for remodeling.
Amen.
Right? You have to like reset it. So people have so much of this. Well, why aren't I healed yet? Like, I've been in therapy for 2 years, and it's, well, how many injuries have we put off, and how many injuries have we let just, heal the wrong way, and we have to reset and
Totally.
put it back together again.
Absolutely.
And that they're just harsh on themselves. Like, I've been in therapy for a year now. Why am I not better? Right? And it's, okay, let's imagine we just look at one injury of one broken bone. What's that, 6 to 8 weeks?
Yeah.
Right? If you do it the right way.
Mm-hmm.
And so we look at that, and it's, how many of these injuries have we been putting off? And it just, we re-injure, and you have, these things that just stay hurt and until you are in enough pain to come in and then get all of it treated at the same time.
Yeah. Isn't that the truth?
So much.
And then there's a lot. So go. Yeah. If there's that pain and your life feels, what did you say? That it just feels, you feel off.
Like yourself.
Don't feel like yourself. Gosh. And that's pretty good indicator. You don't feel like yourself. Something's off. Go get some help. It's okay. Yeah. There's no shame in it, right?
I mean, we go to a physical doctor once a year, right? For a physical. We even go to the dentist twice a year.
Yep.
Right? To get that check. I don't understand why we don't go check our mental health at least once a year.
Absolutely.
Right? That's just something that we go in and check in. Everything seems okay, but I'm just going to go in and see how things are going and just check in.
Yeah.
If I've missed something.
I love that idea. Like, it's a check-in.
Yeah.
I just, I really do believe the best therapists go to therapy as well. Mm-hmm. That they are doing that. They're doing the work. They know the struggle because they're doing their own work right alongside of you, right? Mm-hmm. Because we're humans too, and having a human experience turns out, right?
Yeah.
So
there's something that, like, I had a situation happen where I had shared something with a client, and they said, did I get that from my grand therapist? And I just thought that was the best.
Oh, I love that.
And I'm like, that makes sense. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So your grand therapist is, yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
There you go.
So
I love that. Your grand therapist.
Is that from my grand therapist?
Mm-hmm. Yep, it is. Yeah, it is. You nailed it. That's awesome.
That seems really specific.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're right. That's great. Well, Lindsay, is there anything else that we didn't touch on that you feel like is important as we talk about this question, healing emotional trauma?
No, I think we talked about most of it. I have this, inclination to just remind people that you're human, and that it's just, we're just all trying to live, in this world that is a difficult world to live in. And so trying to heal emotional trauma, that's a big ask, and just keeping that, like, in mind, that you can have a process and you can try to put it into a list, but that it's going to be a lot.
Yeah.
And that's okay. That's going to be a lot. And to just be patient and to have grace.
Amen. Amen. Patience and grace. And it's a lot, right? When you really dig into it, and it's so worth it. To find inner peace, to find some of the healing, and to recognize, like, I don't always have to have that show up and and have this big response to this thing that maybe didn't deserve that big response. Like, you don't have to live like that.
Yeah.
There are options. Healing is possible. It's real. I mean, that's why I think, gosh, yeah, the work we do is hard, and it's so worth it, because you see miracles. You see miracles in people's lives.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
Absolutely.
So a couple of things to recap that I think are really important is to recognize that things happen on the nervous system and in the body. It's not just in the head. And that if we're in our head, we have to recognize that trauma often resides and stays in our body, and that we have to do work with the pain that has been stored in our body. I love the idea of feeling to heal. Like, we've got to feel, we've got to go through it to get on the other side of it. And often it happens when we're kids, because we're developing. We are developing our values, our cognition, and often we didn't have caregivers that were either able or willing to give us the support we need. And so we have to do some of that reparenting ourselves, and to recognize, oh wait, if this is trauma, that The emotion is bigger than the situation, which you said your clients love to hear you say over and over, right?
Over and over again. Yep.
And the process, where we talk about the process, 1, acknowledge the emotion. 2, look at an emotions wheel, right? That's one way to acknowledge it. Sometimes we don't even know what the emotions are. Recognizing, is it bigger than the situation, again, and then having a support system. Sometimes we may not have it, but it's helpful. If, sometimes that takes vulnerability to say, I'm struggling. This is what's happening. Sometimes we need support, but we have to be willing to actually open up to get that support. And then to be curious about it, to not go into judgment or frustration, but to be curious about it. And again, I love the idea of go back to it later. It may not be the time, but don't forget about it because it's there and it'll just brew and usually come out sideways if we don't, right?
Yeah.
So such a good reminder. Well, Lindsay, thanks so much for being here. And thank you for joining us on the Therapist Question Box. Healing from trauma is not about fixing what's broken, but it's rediscovering what's always been inside of you. And we are here to help you with that trauma and to heal that trauma, whether it's a therapist or to use some of these tools to do your own work. We hope that you can find peace and you can find healing. And as always, remember to ask those questions on therapyutah.com or to go to the Therapist Question Box and ask us your questions, and we're here to help you. Until next time, take care.